Greetings, our channel's patrons. Welcome to a new adventure set in the realms of science fiction. If you're enjoying our video offerings, kindly remember to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and engage with the join button to unlock exclusive privileges. Now, let's venture forth on an odyssey that will stretch your imagination's boundaries. The innocent lifeblood of a child spattered upon the cold metallic plating of the Galactic Council chamber. The small, fragile form lay crumpled and lifeless, a harsh contrast to the expanse of the sterile room housing the galaxy's most influential beings. The alien executioner, an entity of insectoid eyes and a voice dripping with scorn, had discharged its disruptor without a flicker of remorse. The crackling energy burst had terminated the boy's existence instantly, silencing his pleas for mercy. All this, purportedly, for the misdemeanor of defacing a sacred monument of a distant alien ethnicity. This brutal event was televised live across the galaxy. Millions observed as the child's corpse fell, his demise a cold message from the Galactic Council. The Council's message: humanity's rebellion would no longer be endured. At that instant, a fuse was ignited, a fuse that would trigger a war unseen within the galaxy. On the bridge of the HSS Indomitable, Captain Logan Carter's fingers clutched the edges of his control console with steely determination. His jaw was clenched so severely that the muscles of his neck ached. The Council's transmission played out on the view screen before him, showcasing the arrogant reptilian face of Aoran Counselor Xanth, who pronounced humanity's sentence with cruel satisfaction. "Let this serve as a lesson to your primitive kind," Xanth sneered, his slitted eyes narrowing as his forked tongue flicked out. "Any infraction of our sacred laws will be met with swift, unyielding justice." Logan experienced a deep, frigid rage, swelling within his chest, the sort of fire that burned silently, not with the immediate flare of open wrath, but with the simmering intensity of something archaic and deeply embedded. He'd anticipated this very moment, the day the Galactic Council would show its true, deceptive colors. Yet nothing could have prepared him for the raw savagery of witnessing a child's execution over nothing more than a groundless accusation. "They executed a child," Logan whispered, hoarse with shock and disbelief. Commander Sarah Hawkins stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the screen, perhaps in vain hope that what they had just observed was a distorted simulation, not reality. Her grip on the railing in front of her was so tight that her knuckles were white. She turned to Logan, her voice trembling with constrained emotion. "What are your commands, sir?" For a lengthy moment, Logan didn't respond. He felt the eyes of his bridge crew upon him, awaiting a directive, waiting for his decision on the fate of mankind in that defining instant. In that silence, history's heavy weight pressed down upon him. Earth had long feared this scenario, yet had covertly prepared for it. They had hoped that diplomacy and cooperation would let them peacefully coexist amidst the stars. Still, at a fundamental level, they had always acknowledged this precarious peace was built upon illusion. Logan's eyes, previously clouded with incredulity, hardened with resolve as he straightened his posture. "Signal the fleet. Power up the Nova cannons and initiate an FTL jump directly to Galactic Council headquarters. This ends today." The bridge immediately sprang into motion as officers conveyed orders. The drone of power intensified as the indomitable systems roared to life. Logan knew there would be no turning back from this. The day of reckoning had arrived, and humanity would meet the Council's hubris with the totality of weapons that had been stashed away for centuries. Warships the Council considered relics of a bygone age, but in truth were Earth's hidden trump card. As the ship's engines thrummed in preparation for the jump, Logan's thoughts drifted to the executed child. He didn't know the boy's name. His face was already becoming a blur in Logan's memory, but that child was now a symbol. His death was the spark that had ignited a conflagration set to consume entire worlds. Deep within the Rocky Mountains, concealed beneath layers of bedrock and strengthened concrete, a secret buried for generations was awakening. Within a vast underground hangar, long-forgotten warships sprang to life, their hulls radiating an iridescent sheen, seeming to shift and shimmer within the floodlights. These were not the clunky, functional vessels the Council had grown accustomed to viewing from Earth. These ships were streamlined, angular, and lethal, forged from alloys that defied understanding. Captain Logan Carter's footsteps echoed through the dimly illuminated corridors as he led a team of Earth Defense Force's highest-ranking officers into the heart of this concealed installation. The air was heavy with the smell of dust and machine oil, a reminder that this locale had been inactive for an extended period. Upon reaching the end of the protracted corridor, they were met by a massive steel blast door, multiple feet thick and lined with security measures, devised to deter even the most resolute intruders. Logan moved forward, placing his hand upon a biometric scanner. The device beeped in acknowledgement, and with a low rumble, the door began to slide open, revealing the hangar beyond. The lights flickered on, illuminating rows upon rows of warships that resembled predators ready to strike. The officers behind Logan stared in awe, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and admiration. Commander Hawkins, still grappling to accept the sight before her, stepped closer to one of the ships and ran her hand along its hull. The metal was cool to the touch, with a texture that felt almost alive. "I assumed the Sigma fleet was just a legend," she murmured, half to herself. Logan turned to face his officers, his expression resolute. "The Sigma fleet is very real," he stated, his voice bearing the weight of years of secrecy and anticipation. Built-in secrecy during the initial years of human space exploration, these vessels had been concealed as a last resort. When the Council confined them to their home system, they had no comprehension of what we were secretly preserving. The group stood in stunned silence, the realization of what they were witnessing sinking in. For decades, the Galactic Council had perceived humanity as a minor power, an upstart race that could be constrained and controlled. However, they had underestimated the ingenuity and resolve of a species that had battled its way back from the precipice of extinction repeatedly. Now, that resilience was poised to be unleashed on the galaxy with devastating force. Logan's voice lowered to a measured, unwavering tone. "The Council wants to keep us imprisoned on Earth, to dictate the terms of our existence. But they're about to learn, the hard way, that humanity answers to no one. We've been pushed too far and now we retaliate. Today, we remind them why you should never corner a predator." The officers exchanged solemn nods, their resolve hardening as they acknowledged the gravity of the situation. This was not simply about retribution, it was about survival. Humanity had been left with no other recourse but to contend, and they would combat with everything they possessed. As Logan led his team back towards the main control room, a sense of cold purpose settled over him. They were about to commence a campaign that would reshape the trajectory of galactic history. Entire worlds would be engulfed in fire, and the Council's arrogance would be repaid with blood. More than anything, Logan realized that this was only the commencement. The galaxy had crossed a line, and there was no retreating. For too long, the stars had been a playground for those who looked down on Earth, who saw humanity as nothing more than a curiosity to be observed and managed. That era was concluded. The galaxy would soon grasp the genuine cost of betraying humankind. And they would grasp it in the single language the Council seemed to understand: overwhelming force. Deep within the heart of the Rocky Mountains, where towering peaks clawed at the sky and snow-covered ridges concealed secrets older than recorded history, something ancient stirred. For generations, this locale had been a fortress of secret knowledge, where Earth's most safeguarded technologies rested dormant. Now, it would become the stage for humanity's reawakening as a formidable force. Beneath layers of granite and fortified steel, within a cavernous underground facility known only to a selective few, the lights snapped on for the first time in nearly a century. Massive blast doors creaked open, their hinges groaning under the strain of disuse, revealing a hangar filled with rows upon rows of warships. Unlike any the galaxy had ever encountered, these ships forged in secrecy were humanity's ace in the hole, the Sigma fleet. While the rest of the galaxy believed Earth's military strength was limited to antiquated vessels and primitive technologies, hidden in the shadows was a fleet designed for a single purpose: to remind the galaxy that humanity would never be Conquered, only delayed. Captain Logan Carter stood at the entrance of the hangar, flanked by his senior officers. As the floodlights flickered to life, casting harsh shadows across the sleek, angular hulls of the dormant warships, the air was thick with the scent of coolant and ozone, a testament to the immense power that thrummed within the facility's walls. For a moment, the officers remained silent, simply staring, their expressions a mix of awe and disbelief. Commander Sarah Hawkins was the first to break the silence. "I still can't believe it," she murmured, her voice laced with equal parts wonder and dread. "All this time, right under our feet." Logan nodded, his gaze never leaving the ships. "We always knew the day would come when diplomacy would fail," he said quietly, "when the galaxy would show its true face. The Sigma fleet was our contingency plan, built in secret, hidden away and waiting for this very moment." He began to walk forward, his footsteps. The officers' gazes followed the sounds as they echoed off the concrete, tracing the contours of the spacecraft as they advanced. These weren't the ungainly, functional vessels the Galactic Council had grown accustomed to from Earth's military. No, these ships were distinctly different, almost predatory, with an organic feel to them. Their exteriors shimmered, employing a peculiar iridescent metal that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Humanity's genuine potential was embodied by this fleet, a fusion of Earth's bleeding-edge technology with designs reverse-engineered from extraterrestrial wrecks and forgotten artifacts retrieved from space's deepest recesses. The Sigma project had its genesis amidst betrayal, a period when Earth had first interacted with the wider galaxy and naively believed it could cultivate allies. At that juncture, humanity was eager to explore, learn from advanced civilizations, and freely share knowledge. But the Galactic Council rapidly disabused them of that notion. Earth's diplomatic overtures and offers of cooperation were met with disdain and barely concealed contempt. The Council imposed stringent trade restrictions and a harsher prohibition on faster-than-light FTL travel, confining humanity to its own solar system under the guise of maintaining power balance. This maneuver had left humanity vulnerable, isolated, and brimming with resentment. But rather than surrendering, Earth went underground, diverting resources to clandestine projects the Council would never anticipate. The Sigma fleet was the crowning achievement of those endeavors, constructed not just as a means of defense, but as a statement of defiance. Logan halted before one of the lead ships, a colossal dreadnought. Adorning its prow was the insignia of the Earth Defense Force. The vessel's hull bristled with weaponry, exceeding established understanding. Plasma cannons able to tear through shields effortlessly, railguns that propelled projectiles at near-light speeds, and a prototype energy lance designed to slice through. Capital ships with pinpoint accuracy. "This is what the Council fears the most," Logan stated, his voice carrying through the hangar. "Not our numbers, not our colonies, but our capacity to adapt, to harness what we've learned and fashion something they can't begin to fathom." Commander Hawkins stepped forward, her hand resting on the dreadnought's hull. "The materials alone, they feel alive," she whispered, a furrow in her brow. "How did we keep this concealed for so long?" Logan permitted himself a small smile. "It wasn't easy. But it turns out that when you restrict an entire species to a single star system, you grant them ample time to focus on innovation." The Sigma fleet had been hidden in plain sight, camouflaged as asteroid mining operations, deep space research stations, and decommissioned shipyards. "We knew the Council's spies were ever watchful, so we gave them precisely what they expected: routine activity." Hawkins turned to Logan, her eyes shining with a mix of excitement and concern. "And now it's time to reveal what we've been concealing from the galaxy." Logan's smile faded as he met her gaze. "Yes, but make no mistake, Commander. Once we unleash this fleet, there's no turning back. The Council will interpret it as a declaration of war and will hurl everything they possess at us. We'll be fighting not just for retribution, but for survival." Hawkins nodded solemnly. "I understand. But after what we've just witnessed, there is no other option." Logan surveyed the other officers, each standing a bit taller, their expressions hardening with resolution. This was the moment they had prepared for, the moment they had waited for in the shadows. The era of concealment was over. "Gentlemen," Logan said, his voice firm and authoritative, "I want every ship in this fleet combat-ready within 24 hours. We will strike the Council where it hurts, and will demonstrate that Earth will never be subjugated by their tyranny." The officers saluted smartly before dispersing to carry out their orders. The hangar was a hive of activity as crews commenced diagnostics, powering up systems that hadn't been used for decades, and readying the ships for their initial real combat operations. As Logan headed towards the command center, he couldn't shake the feeling that they stood on the cusp of something momentous. The upcoming days would dictate not just Earth's future, but the fate of the entire galaxy. Humanity was about to step out of the shadows into the light, and the galaxy would either acknowledge their place among the stars or be destroyed in the process. Inside the command center, the walls were lined with displays presenting real-time data feeds from the Sigma fleet. Ship engineers worked diligently to guarantee that every system functioned properly, while tactical officers coordinated with the fleet's captains to refine their battle strategies. Logan sat at the central console, his thoughts racing as he considered the variables. They had the element of surprise, but that advantage wouldn't last long. The Council would swiftly mobilize their fleets and launch a counter-offensive, using the full weight of their resources once they understood the threat. Logan knew they had to strike hard and fast to disrupt their supply lines and force them into a defensive posture. As the tactical displays updated with new information, Logan's attention was captured by a flashing indicator on the main screen, an encrypted, high-priority transmission. With a frown, he activated the feed, revealing the image of an elderly man with graying hair and a stern expression. Admiral Marcus Stokes, the individual who had supervised the Sigma fleet's development from its inception. "Captain Carter," Stokes began, his voice gravelly and commanding, "I trust you have reviewed the broadcast." Logan nodded. "We have, sir. The Council has crossed a line they cannot retreat from. We are mobilizing the fleet now." Stokes leaned forward, his expression grim. "Good. However, there is something you need to grasp. This is not solely about the Council any longer. The galaxy is watching, and what we do next will set the tone for everything that follows. We need to hit them hard, but we also must be strategic. If we are perceived as merely a rogue faction driven by destruction, every species in the galaxy will unite against us." Logan's eyes narrowed. "So what's the plan, sir?" Stokes activated a holographic display, projecting a detailed star map in the center of the room. Points of interest blinked into view: critical Council installations, supply routes, and trading hubs. "We're going to launch a multi-pronged offensive," he explained. "The primary force will directly target the Galactic Council's headquarters while concurrently executing diversionary raids on their peripheral systems. We need to keep them off balance, make them react to us instead of coordinating a unified response." He paused, his gaze hardening. "But there's one more matter. The Council possesses an ace in the hole, a weapon they've been developing in secrecy, just as we did with the Sigma fleet. We don't have all the specifics, but our intelligence suggests it's a doomsday device capable of obliterating entire star systems. If they feel cornered, they might utilize it." Logan's blood ran cold. "Do we have a means to counteract it?" Stokes shook his head. "Not yet, but that's where you come in. Your mission, Captain, is to locate that weapon and neutralize it by any means necessary. If we can remove it, the Council will be forced to negotiate or face complete annihilation." Logan's jaw tightened as he processed the gravity of the situation. "Understood, sir. We'll get it done." "Good luck, Captain," Stokes stated, his voice softening slightly. "The future of humanity is in your hands. Make them remember who we are." The transmission ended, leaving Logan staring at the star map. The weight of responsibility pressed upon him, but he set it aside. There was no room for doubt, no space for hesitation. They had prepared for this moment for years, and now it was time to execute. He keyed in a command, and the hangar systems came to life. The Sigma fleet ships, once dormant and forgotten, powered up simultaneously, their engines glowing with barely contained energy. The cavernous hangars shuddered as the enormous vessels lifted off, hovering a few inches above the floor as they readied for launch. Logan took one final look at the fleet, feeling a surge of pride and determination. This was more than just a demonstration of strength. It was the beginning of a new era. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity was not to be trifled with, and those who sought to oppress them would pay the ultimate price. With a final nod to his crew, Logan activated the launch sequence. The Sigma fleet surged out of the hangar and into the void, leaving behind the shadows of secrecy and stepping boldly into the light of open conflict. The war had commenced, and there would be no retreat. Deep space's silence was shattered as the Sigma fleet sliced through the emptiness at faster-than-light speeds, their sleek, predatory hulls cutting through the darkness with lethal precision. Leading the charge at the heart of the formation, the HSS Indomitable blazed forth, its engines fueled by the cold fire of vengeance. This was not merely a show of force, but an all-out declaration of war. Captain Logan Carter stood at the Indomitable's bridge, his eyes locked on the tactical display that portrayed the Sigma fleet closing in on the Galactic Council's home system. This was the heart of the Council's power, a cluster of densely populated worlds and sprawling orbital installations housing the seat of their government for centuries. It had been the symbol of galactic order and authority. Today, it would become a battlefield. ETA to the target? Logan's voice was calm, almost cold, as he addressed his crew. 2 minutes, Captain, Commander Hawkins responded, her hands moving swiftly over the console, monitoring the fleet's status. All vessels report. Weapons online, ready, awaiting your command. Logan nodded, his thoughts accelerating. The Council wouldn't anticipate an assault against their home system, not from a species they'd treated as insignificant, but that was precisely why they would strike here first. They needed shock and awe. The Council's defenses would be unprepared, thrown into disarray, forced into a defensive posture. Speed and accuracy were key to this strategy. Logan knew his adversaries well enough. The Galactic Council was a massive organization, but its military was dangerous, composed of many different species fleets, battle-tested through centuries of combat. Surprise would get them only so far. When the Council rallied, they'd counter with full force. All ships, ready Phase 1, Logan announced, his tone carrying the weight of responsibility. This is it. Hit hard, hit fast, and eliminate their command structure. The bridge quieted, a tense stillness as the countdown continued. The view screen showcased the Council's homeworld, increasing in size every second. A world of bright spires and enormous cities, a symbol of dominance, and made on the backs of those the Council had subjugated. The injustice fueled Logan's resolve. The number of innocent lives crushed under the Council's system weighed on him. 30 seconds to target, Hawkins reported, a note of eagerness in her voice. Logan scanned the crew, each face set with determination. They knew the importance of their actions. This was not merely about payback. It was a message to the galaxy. Humanity would no longer be oppressed. They wouldn't be dictated to by a council of remote rulers. They would broadcast their presence with fury. Engage stealth field, Logan instructed. In a flash, the Sigma fleet vanished from visual and sensor readings. Advanced stealth technology, built in secret over decades, rendered the fleet undetectable to Council sensors. The enemy wouldn't realize the attack until it was too late. The countdown reached 0, and with one command, Logan released the full might of the Sigma fleet. The fleet materialized in orbit around the Council's central planet, a wall of warcraft that blotted out the stars. Total surprise. For a brief, terrible moment, the Council's defenses did nothing. Their sensors struggled to process the sudden appearance of hostile ships within their most secured area. Then alarms blared, and chaos took hold. Target their orbital platforms, Logan ordered, his voice as steady as steel. Disable their communication and sensor arrays. Blind them first. The Indomitable's weapons fired, unleashing plasma bolts and fast-moving projectiles. The Council's defense platforms, massive, weapon-covered constructs, erupted in an explosion of light as their shields collapsed, armor plates melted. All around the planet, the Sigma fleet executed precise maneuvers. Squadrons of fighter craft swarmed out of the hangars, darting through the chaos, attacking key systems, before the Council forces could coordinate a response. On the bridge of the Council's flagship, the celestial virtue, dread and panic were in full effect. Counselor Xanth, the reptilian Aoran, once so self-assured when sentencing humanity, was anything but. His scaled hands trembled as he studied the tactical displays. The symbols representing his ships disappeared one by one as they were obliterated by human firepower. "Impossible!" Xanth roared, a mix of fury and dread. How could they have amassed such a fleet without us knowing? His bridge crew fought to understand the developing situation. The Council's formidable defenses, believed invincible, were systematically failing against an enemy they'd belittled. Xanth's arrogance combined with his increasing fear. This wasn't simply a revolt, but an official declaration of war from a species that had obviously been preparing. "Order the fleets to regroup," Xanth ordered, his voice cracking. "We must contain this before it spreads." But it was already too late. The Sigma fleet's relentless assault destroyed the Council's forces at impressive speeds. Key infrastructure was destroyed. The Council's communication system was in tatters. They struggled to organize. Logan watched the battle from the Indomitable's bridge with an appropriate measure of satisfaction. His crew performed seamlessly, carrying out their orders with the skills of trained professionals. This was not a simple mission. They were making history. "Status report," Logan said, focused on the tactical display. Commander Hawkins's fingers moved swiftly over her console, analyzing the data. "We've knocked out 70% of their orbital defenses, Captain. The remaining platforms are damaged, but we detect reinforcements coming in from the outer system." Logan's gaze hardened. "Deploy the second wave. We need to eliminate those reinforcements before they can organize." The order was given instantly. More vessels surged forward from the main fleet to meet the approaching reinforcements. The Council's ships were powerful, shielded and armed, but they were no match for the Sigma fleet's advanced technology. The battle showed this quickly. The Council ships' weapons struggled to penetrate the shields and armor of the Sigma vessels, while human weapons cut through enemy defenses easily. As the fight continued, Logan remained focused on the larger strategic picture. They could not allow themselves to get drawn into a prolonged battle. The longer the fight, the more time the Council would have to consolidate forces from all over the galaxy. "Commander, redirect energy to the forward batteries. I want those reinforcements crushed before they can counterattack." The Indomitable's prow illuminated as energy surged into its main weapon array. A moment later, a searing plasma blast shot through space, destroying the lead Council cruiser. The ship's shields flared before failing, and immediately its hull was torn apart in a massive explosion. "Target neutralized," Hawkins stated evenly as the fight raged. The battle was intense, but Logan's satisfaction was tempered by the knowledge that this was just the start. The Council's forces were still formidable, and if they rallied, they would counter with vengeance. However, they held the upper hand. On the Council's capital world, chaos reigned. Civilians ran in terror as explosions lit up the sky. The shockwaves of the orbital bombardments tore through the cities. The Council's military installations were in lockdown, attempting to deploy what forces they could to defend against the invasion, but it was clear that they were completely caught off guard. The very heart of their empire was under siege. They didn't know how to respond. In one of the planet's central command bunkers, high-ranking Council officials huddled, their faces filled with terror and disbelief. They had not imagined that humanity would be able to execute such a destructive strike. Humanity had been underestimated, treated as a weak species. Now, that arrogance was being paid for in blood. As the conflict reached its peak, Logan recognized they were near a pivotal moment. The Council's forces were starting to organize a coordinated defense, moving back to form a perimeter around key installations. They were moving from a state of shock into one of survival. "All ships prepare for Phase 2, Logan announced. "We must maintain our advantage while they're disoriented." The Sigma fleet changed formation, consolidating into a spearhead and moving towards the heart of the Council's defenses. The objective was simple: breach their lines, destroy their central command and control centers, and destabilize the Council's leadership. Without proper coordination, the Council's defenses would crumble. As the Indomitable led the charge, Logan felt the weight of history. This was the moment, the chance to break free of the shackles that had constrained humanity. But with this opportunity came immense risk. If they failed, there would be no second chance. The Council would obliterate them without mercy. Failure was unacceptable today. The Sigma fleet's forward batteries unleashed a series of powerful blasts, hammering the Council's defensive perimeter. Shields flared, flickering, trying to withstand the continued barrage. Council ships buckled, hulls crumpled under the bombardment while others broke formation, attempting to escape the onslaught. In the midst of the chaos, the Council's flagship, the Celestial Virtue, loomed like an injured beast. Its former authority marred by damage, its shields flickering. On the bridge, Counselor Xanth clutched the arms of his command chair, his eyes wide with panic. "They've broken through!" an officer cried out, despair in their voice. "We can't retreat," Xanth growled, his voice fraught with despair. "We will hold the line. We cannot allow them to reach the command centers." Yet even as he barked orders, Xanth felt the hollowness of the situation. It was hopeless. The humans had arrived prepared, their technology and strategies far surpassing what the Council could offer. The Sigma fleet was unstoppable, an irresistible force carving a path of destruction. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Logan observed as the Council's defenses began to crumble. The way to the command centers was opening as planned. "It's time to conclude this," Logan said to Commander Hawkins. "Target those command and control hubs. I want every single one of them eradicated." Hawkins acknowledged the instruction, her hands moving quickly across the controls. "Coordinates locked. Firing!" The Indomitable's primary guns thundered, unleashing torrents of energy toward the planet's surface. The impacts were devastating, obliterating the Council's command centers in a series of colossal explosions. The Council's leadership was now leaderless, their forces scattered in disarray as their chain of command broke apart. The fight was over. Logan granted himself a moment to breathe, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. They had done it. The Council's heart had been struck, and the message was undeniable. Humanity was not a species to be trifled with. Yet even as victory indicators flashed across the tactical displays, Logan realized this was merely the commencement. The Council would reorganize and the war was far from over. But today, they had achieved a decisive victory, a victory that would reverberate across the galaxy. "Prepare the fleet to withdraw," Logan ordered, his voice unwavering. "We've made our point. Now we regroup and brace for their response." As the Sigma fleet began to retreat, leaving the smoking ruins of the Council's capital world behind, Logan pondered what the future held. The galaxy had irrevocably changed, and humanity was now at the core of the storm. The Council's hubris had been their downfall, and now they would pay the cost. But Logan knew that with victory came even greater challenges. The path ahead would be long and perilous, but it was a path they were prepared to traverse. Today, humanity had taken its initial step towards freedom, and there would be no turning back. The aftermath of defeat still clung to the Council's capital world. Where once stood shining spires, now lay the charred remains of an empire's pride, reduced to twisted metal and scorched earth. It was a humiliation that Counselor Xanth found intolerable, but even more, it was a provocation that demanded retribution. Within the Council's emergency chamber, a vast circular hall deep beneath the surface, Xanth paced like a captive predator. The walls of the chamber were adorned with banners from the scores of species that made up the Galactic Council, each a symbol of unity that now felt hollow. Around the central table, representatives from those species argued in panicked tones, the air thick with anxiety and fear. "This is insanity!" hissed the representative from the Zoran, a tall insectoid species with multifaceted eyes that mirrored the dim light in fractured patterns. "The humans have shown us what they are capable of. We should be negotiating peace, not preparing for further conflict." "Peace!" Xanth spat the word as if it were venom, his sharp teeth visible in the dim light as he turned on the Zoran. "You imagine these savages can be reasoned with? They have declared war on us. They've torched our cities, slaughtered our people, and they won't cease until they have torn this council asunder. We must respond with overwhelming force." The Zoran bristled, its mandibles clicking in agitation. "Overwhelming force? You have already tried that, and look where it got us. The humans outmaneuvered us at every turn. Their technology is beyond anything we anticipated. If we proceed down this route, we risk our entire civilization." Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. Xanth's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the faces of the other counselors. Fear, doubt, they were wavering, and in that hesitation he saw the seeds of betrayal. But he would not allow weakness to fester, not when retribution was within his grasp. "This council was founded on strength," Xanth growled, his voice low and menacing. "We are the ruling authority of this galaxy, and we did not achieve that through compromise and capitulation. The humans believe they can challenge us, but they are mistaken. We will crush them, just as we have crushed every other species that dared defy us." A grizzled amphibian counselor from the outer rim leaned forward, his wide mouth set in a grim line. "And how do you suggest we do that, Counselor Xanth? Our fleets are in disarray, our command centers are in ruin, and the humans have exposed vulnerabilities we didn't even know existed. We can't simply throw ships at them and hope for the best." Xanth's lips curved into a predatory smile. "No, we will not simply throw ships at them. We will lure them into a trap they will not foresee coming. The humans have grown bold, too bold. They believe they are invincible with their precious Sigma fleet, but we possess something they do not." He tapped a command into the console before him, and the holographic display in the center of the chamber shifted. A new image emerged, a rotating model of a massive structure, a superweapon created in secret, hidden deep within Council space. The chamber fell silent as the counselors gazed at the projection, their expressions a mix of awe and dread. "This is Project Apus," Xanth continued, his voice a whisper of dark promise. "A weapon of unimaginable power, capable of annihilating entire star systems in a single strike. We've kept it hidden until now, but the time has come to unleash it. The humans believe they have the upper hand, but they are sorely mistaken. We will draw them in, make them think they have a chance, and then we will obliterate them." The Zoran counselor recoiled in horror. "You would use such a weapon? Do you realize what that would unleash? The destruction would be catastrophic." Xanth's eyes gleamed with a manic light. "Precisely. We will show the humans the true cost of defying us. And once we've broken their fleet, we will reduce their homeworld to cinders. Earth will be nothing more than a memory, a warning to any other species that might think to challenge our rule." For a long moment, the chamber was silent. Then, slowly, the murmurs of dissent began to fade. Fear was a powerful motivator, and Xanth knew how to wield it like a blade. The counselors, despite their hesitations, began to see the logic in his plan. This was no longer a war of territory or resources. It was a battle for survival, and in such conflicts there could be no half measures. The counselors exchanged glances, their resolve hardening. One by one they nodded in agreement. The decision was made. Project Apus would be deployed, and the galaxy would tremble at the Council's might. Xanth felt a surge of satisfaction. The pieces were falling into place, the trap was set, and soon the humans would willingly march into their doom. Light years away, aboard the HSS Indomitable, Captain Logan Carter studied the tactical readouts in silence. The battle had been a resounding success, far more decisive than even he had predicted. The Council's capital was in ruins, their fleets scattered, and humanity's message had been delivered with brutal clarity. But Logan knew that victory on the battlefield was only one component of the equation. The true challenge lay in what was next. "We are picking up increased chatter across Council comms," Commander Hawkins reported from her station. It looks like they are regrouping, attempting to consolidate what remains of their forces. Logan nodded, his expression unreadable. They will come back at us with everything they've got. They will rally their allies, muster reinforcements from every corner of the galaxy, and throw the full weight of their empire against us. Hawkins glanced at him, her brow furrowed. Do you think they will risk another direct confrontation after what just happened? They don't have a choice, Logan replied. They cannot afford to allow us to maintain the initiative. We've exposed their vulnerabilities, but that only makes them more dangerous. Desperation breeds recklessness. He paused, considering their next move. The Sigma fleet had struck a powerful blow, but it was far from a killing strike. The Council still had vast resources at its disposal, and if they were given time to regroup, they could become a threat. Even the Sigma fleet might struggle to overcome. We need to stay ahead of them, Logan said finally. We hit them where they are weakest, keep them off balance, but more than that, we need allies. Hawkins raised an eyebrow. Allies? From where? Most of the galaxy's species are either loyal to the Council or too terrified to stand against them. Logan's eyes narrowed. Not all of them. There is one species that has been chafing under the Council's rule for centuries, the Varons. They are a warrior culture, once one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, until the Council broke them and reduced them to little more than slaves. If we can persuade them to join us, they could tip the balance in our favor. Hawkins looked skeptical. They are fiercely independent. They have refused to ally with anyone since their fall, and they possess a deep-seated hatred for outsiders. That's true, Logan acknowledged. But they also hate the Council more than anyone. They have been awaiting an opportunity to strike back, and this may be their best chance. If we can offer them a means to reclaim their honor and their freedom, they may just be willing to listen. Hawkins still looked doubtful, but she nodded. It's a long shot, but if anyone can pull it off, it's you, Captain. Logan allowed himself a faint smile.